Welcome to Business Beyond Borders, the go-to podcast for CPA firms seeking transformative insights. I'm your host, Lawrence Whittam, and with each episode we'll uncover key insights, best practices, and invaluable resources tailored for CPAs. From trending strategies to diving deep into outsourcing and offshoring, our experts will help in all areas of your business. Hey everyone, and welcome back to Business Beyond Borders. So we have a slightly different episode today where we'll be going into a bit more of the technical side of things. And again, a lot of these episodes don't go into too technical because again, at the end of the day, I'm not an accountant, so I don't want to advise a lot of the firms as to how to do what they're doing. But I love that Shana Cooper, she's created a very special niche for herself in what she's doing. And again, previously was an accountant. And this is a great way to sort of showcase what areas you can be doing in your business better. It can also definitely help you do better with your clients and create a lot more structure. And this also relates to the outsourcing and using contractors, because again, standardizing processes is very important. So, Shana, very great to have you on. I appreciate you joining, and I would love to let you just take the spotlight a little bit, introduce yourself and what you do.
Okay. Thanks so much, Lawrence. I really appreciate being here today. So my name is Shana Cooper, and my company name is the Accountability Team. And I really chose that because I want to be sure that both from the standpoint of it is focused on the abilities of accountants, but also to really focus on the importance of accountability in an accounting firm, as well as an outsourced firm's life with their clients, right? They are being held accountable and should be holding themselves accountable to what they do on a daily basis. So what I do is really help accounting teams improve their reconciliation quality. And that then it goes into things like, reducing the risk of the exposure on their financial statements. It increases their opportunities of their reputation, really, right? Like no one wants to be held captive to some issue that they find, months down the road for their clients.
Now, and when we talk about that now, I've had a decent amount of experience working with a good number of firms so what I see from the outsider's perspective a lot of the times is whenever an accounting project gets passed over from an accounting firm to an accounting firm, the accountant will say that they didn't do the best job on the reconciliation side and all this area. So like, why is that? Like, why in general, if you can generalize it, right?
Sure.
Why do we see so much difference from firm to firm?
Well, I do think that most accountants are not taught in school to begin with how to do a proper account reconciliation. You may learn how to do a good bank reconciliation, right? That's kind of the core thing that you learn. You learn about the balance sheet, but they don't really take it that next step of why do account reconciliations and even the methodology around proper account reconciliations. So I think that is the main issue is there is no standardized education around until the accountability team around account reconciliations, right? So they don't learn it in school. And when they go out to do that in practice, they're learning it based on the people who have done it before at that firm, right? So they may or maybe not be taught properly. Understood. And you've been in firms, right? I mean, you've worked for mid-sized, larger CPA firms as well, and you've really helped them with this process, specifically standardizing the reconciliation side of things. Can you give a bit of your background just with the private side, with the public CPA firms that you've worked with as well, just so that everybody can get an idea as to, again, you've seen it on both sides, right? From private to client sides and also the public accounting firm side of it. Absolutely. So I have about a little over 30 years of experience in accounting, and that stems, like you said, from audit and really that firm side, to industry, to technology, to consulting, and then now my own company. So I actually worked in the accounting team for an accounting firm early in my career, actually for about 10, 11 years. So that, if you can think about the fact that you have as your clients, like my clients were essentially the partners of that firm who also were accountants, right? So that to me, I was very fortunate to have been given that opportunity to really truly be held accountable to excellent work at that time, like very early in my career. But on that audit side too, right? Like that's what we were doing. It's like we were looking at the reconciliations of our clients to better understand their business. And that's what reconciliations really do. And then when I moved out of, public, and then also moved away from that accounting firm, moved into controllership, other industries as well, and then also technology. So I was an early adopter of Blackline, which is known primarily, initially kind of for the account reconciliation technology and automation, but also there's a, whole close optimization platform that they've built. So while I always say that technology is not the end all be all, right? I do love technology. Like I said, I was an early adopter of it, very early on in Blackline. I was like employee number 24 then when I liked it so much that I went and to work for them. But people have to be very careful. Like that's the question I get the most, I would say, is why not just let the technology do it, right? Like there is technology out there for it.
Yeah.
But there's more to it than that, right? Like you need the full framework, the people, the processes, all of the things that we've always heard. But I think people just get complacent with the technology.
Yeah, I agree. It's like I say, the 3 Ps, like people, process, and platform. That's what I got taught. Mm-hmm. And it's even when we talk about like AI and the technology and implementing it, it's going to help from the staffing perspective, it's going to help automate aspects. But at the end of the day, you need people to be able to utilize the technology correctly. If you don't utilize the technology correctly and you don't know how to, you're not going to get to the finish line. You're not actually going to be able to become as efficient as you want to be. But also from the quality perspective, you still need to know where the gaps are so you can check on certain aspects of that as well. So hugely important. Now, how can firms identify if they have this type of problem, right? Whether it's, because again, I'm sure with larger teams, it may be easier to identify if certain people are struggling to do certain aspects and maybe they don't have specific training programs yet in place where you can be plugged in to help out and make sure there's some standardization there. But even from a small firm perspective, and to self-identify as well, if that's the case too, what's the best way to do so?
Well, I'm going to shamelessly plug, if you go to my website, you can download actually a reconciliation assessment for free. Okay. And that's going to help you actually identify all of the different characteristics of a quality reconciliation. So that's going to focus on the reconciliation itself, like, things like, is it standardized? Is it a standardized template, right? And, you may think, well, what's even the importance of that? Well, obviously that all leads into efficiencies and harmony across your organization. But for that small organization as well, you also have to then, of course, look at the process. So it's not just about the reconciliations themselves and the quality of those, but then also looking at how effective is my overall process. Look at the data. Like, is my data even accurate, right? Because that's really, to me, like kind of the first step. And do I have the right people assigned to the processes, assigned to the workflow within the process? Do I even know who's assigned to each reconciliation? But again, I think the first step really is, number one, from a process perspective, making sure that you even know what balances you're trying to reconcile, who's assigned to those balances, and then When are those reconciliations due? And then lastly, that quality piece of, are we even doing good reconciliations? And again, I've got that list of all those characteristics that define a quality rec.
Gotcha. And then, so what actually brought you down to working on this side of things, right? Was it that you've just seen so many bad reconciliations over the years? Like, just out of interest, like what even led you to being like, because it's a very niche and it's a very specific area that you're focusing on. And clearly you've seen a gap. And I would assume it's from the amount of reconciliations you've seen and you've had to correct. But what got you to here?
Yeah, it's a good question because I think a lot of people, they usually kind of shy away from recs. They think they're boring. They think they're like, oh, it's just one more thing on my checklist. And I've really thought about this, like, why have, like, at every company I've ever been at and like every job really that I've even helped design for myself, it always related back to recs. And again, I've kind of thought about, yes, it definitely, over time, I've seen a lot of very bad ones. And they have had, in some cases, pretty severe impact, right, of the result of that. It might have been, something booked the wrong way, whatever it is, but it's more about the opportunities that have come out of those, the process opportunities, the opportunities for talent growth. Like, I've seen people, it's like, just working through reconciliation, understanding the inputs and the outputs, like the upstream and downstream processes related to them, and the silos broken. I especially working with companies that have outsourced organizations, as even just a small or a big part of it, the silos that are broken because they are doing excellent accounting and excellent reconciliations, because they have to talk, they have to understand. And so that's where, like, I kind of thought it's all about harmonization. I love harmony. I love, like, well, what else is harmonious, I guess, besides a good reconciliation? I love duets. I love the dual when I say ice skating, right? Like, where's pairs, right?
Okay, yeah.
Pairs of ice skating. Obviously a marriage, right? Like, my husband and I have been married almost 30 years. It's like those types of things, like, you really, like, they're almost beautiful when something can get harmonized, and you have to understand both sides of the equation.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
In order to, and I know maybe that's kind of a fluffy answer, but it's something I've really thought about. Like, why, what is it about me that has, why I like and really am passionate about this topic?
No, that's great. And again, you have to have a passion to enjoy it and to do it yourself. So, and again, I think you're not alone. I think there's a lot of accountants that are passionate about these types of things and the quality of the work that they produce. So, and I think that's also where, again, somewhat of the journey, right? I mean, one thing that we've talked about previously was around you have gone the step from helping people to actually building out essentially a journey and a curriculum for them to really help educate multiple people in there. And this is the element that I think could really help some of the listeners from especially those that are using outsourcing firms, and also talent that may be, again, contractors or anybody coming in, is making these standard processes, but having a system where, okay, let's invest in making sure everybody does it the same way and everybody knows there's a training there to go through. Because again, people find it difficult to necessarily take what they have in their process, put it down on paper, and actually put a training around that as well. Because now they're having to think back to even the foundations of what they learned, right? So, and there isn't necessarily the very specific training that they need for certain aspects as well. So can you explain a bit of that journey, and also, like, from the certification side of things and the education, like what that looks like and what that curriculum looks like? That would be helpful.
Absolutely. So I have 4 components to my program, which is called Reconciliation Strong. So obviously the goal of that is to be strong from the standpoint of you've got a smart close, you have trusted financial statements, you are ready for anything, really ready for an audit, ready for, tax return, whatever you need to be ready for, optimized technology, a nimble team, and then growth for accounting talent. So like that's the ultimate goal of the program. So the 4 components are strategy. So we're going to do an assessment on your program, your team, as well as your individual recs. That assessment is going to take into account the structure of your organization and obviously your goals, right? Because everybody's journey might look a little bit different if they, again, depending on how their team is structured and what they're trying to accomplish and how fast, really, what do we need some acceleration? Then there's support. So you have access to me, as well as access to, just anything that I like, my framework, right? But a lot of it is access to me, expertise, and that's both online as well as we have one-on-one sessions. Then the certifications, as you mentioned. Now, you could choose to just do curriculum. You could choose just to do strategy, just support. But that Reconciliation Strong journey that I'm going to build out, and that's specific to the different types of roles. So there's a different journey for program lead, subject matter experts, and the advisors and accountants, but they all work together. So that's what I'll build custom for each organization. And then the certification incorporates the curriculum, but it's a one-on-one. We work really integrated so that each small piece of the curriculum is built out for, again, that interactivity. So you're going to have different exercises, quizzes, really trying to qualify and make sure that somebody truly understands a good rec. It's not just, take this course and okay, now you're good to go afterwards, right? We're actually going to certify, like my name's on the line on this, right? And to say, yes, I know for a fact that this person knows how to do good reconciliations. And there's a journey to that as well. The very first one is the kind of foundation. And then we move from there to different types of templates, different types of reconciliations, and so on.
Gotcha. And then, so what are the key, obviously, the main goal is really from the quality perspective, right? Is to really make sure that really everybody understands. Now, is there anything else, like generally when they get everything going and they're in the right, and let's say they do the certification, are they going to have other benefits to that outside of the quality? Like, is it efficiencies that will come into play? Is it, again, time taken to do reconciliation? I don't know if you have specific numbers around like where they, let's say an average number of, let's say if it takes you 2 hours, now it's going to get you down to an hour and a half type thing, right? You're not automating necessarily everything or things like that. It depends on the tools they've got, and you're focusing more on that process and the quality side of it. But is there anything else that they're going to get out of by doing that?
Absolutely. So they will gain efficiencies. A lot of those efficiencies are going to be gained from, again, that kind of the harmony and the morale and accountability that has been built in the process, as well as, like you said, depending on the types of tools that they have, we're going to work with those. I can recommend other tools if they choose to, use that. But I have kind of tips and tricks for whatever tool they're using that we can gain efficiencies in. I've seen efficiencies just simply by making sure that they're reconciling the right accounts at the same time. So in some cases, they might be reconciling 2 accounts that are very interrelated, and they're reconciling those separately. And we can actually kind of merge those or group those together, and they can do one reconciliation instead. So there's all kinds of efficiencies that can be gained, but obviously, like understanding the process and understanding what is leading up to needing to do that reconciliation. Frankly, I see not only the efficiencies in the rec process in and of itself for standardization and things, but more efficiencies in the processes, the upstream and downstream processes too.
Now, and you gave one example there of like, again, from the efficiency perspective of, and it comes down to, it could be seen as a mistake, right? Of what the way that people are doing it, but not really a quality mistake, but more of like, it becomes an efficiency area that they can work on there. Can you maybe give a couple of examples? Because again, I'm sure everybody listening will be like, yes, I've seen that from my team, but a couple of these most common errors that maybe you see when it comes to the reconciliation side of things, what you really sort of, maybe that's a big foundation of what you work on because you just see it so commonly.
Sure. So again, as I was just talking, I would say, not doing reconciliations with number one, the right template. So they might be, reconciling something that is in a roll forward type of format. So it's not even a reconciliation. That's probably issue number one, right?
Okay.
Like the most common issue. So roll forward is taking the balance from the prior period, taking the activity, adding it, subtracting it, and then getting the balance. That's not a reconciliation because that is just simply the activity that's happened, right? It's just kind of like restating that activity. So number one is just even knowing what a good reconciliation is, which is substantiating the balance with third party or independent sources. Second is having way more documentation than is even needed. So a lot of times individuals will just kind of add to the documentation or maybe even use Excel as their documentation. So they're not using the right third-party support, right? Okay. So they're just typing into Excel versus going and finding this third-party substantiated documentation. And then third, I would just say is, not really even understanding what the balance even is related to. And so they're not clearly articulating how do you even know that balance is right?
Yeah.
And so they're not really digging deep. They're just, okay, this is what somebody else told me. This is what I learned, and not using that critical thinking skill to dig deeper. And a lot of times that stems from not feeling like they have the time to do that, or maybe they don't have the access to their manager because their manager doesn't have a lot of time. So that's where I can really help as well and kind of bridge that gap, but we can find those efficiencies. So on both sides, the managers especially are having the time to actually review the reconciliations.
Cool. No, I appreciate that, Shana. And again, this is one of these areas that, again, it resonates very strongly for me, again, because I'm building my business based on, again, the educational side of it when it comes to outsourcing and offshoring. And again, the quality of work is one of the top issues that typically comes up, is that and again, if you think about it, accountants, both offshore, onshore as well, but when you're bringing on a contractor domestically, whether you're bringing on a third party, whether you're bringing on an offshore team or offshore talent, they've got different experiences. They've been trained in different ways.
Yes.
They haven't been trained exactly the same way. And I think because they're in a virtual setting, a lot of the times as well, there isn't that training that will go on that typically if you go into an office, you sit down next to somebody, you build a relationship, they train as they go in a lot of cases. And now we somewhat lose that a little bit since COVID. And I think there's a bigger gap that's opening up essentially. And again, the quality piece is just extremely important, right? And is one of those elements that everybody from an accounting perspective, they if you ask anybody, they all say, I want to have the highest quality. That's what I pride myself on, my quality, but it needs to be scalable as well, right? Yes. So this is where this training, and it takes time, like you said, right? So it's, I highly recommend talking to Shana and or other people and implementing training both with your onshore and offshore teams, right? When it comes to offshoring. And again, I'm never, like I educate on the outsourcing side. I'm never going to be able to dig into the technical areas of the reconciliation side of it. So it's great to have you as a resource for that. I mean, is there anything you want to share just as we start to wrap up? How can people find you? any quick summary of the journey side of it again, so that people know what's the best way, if there's more resources they can find more information on you for, that would be great to share now.
Sure. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm at Shana Cooper with one N. And I do have a website, of course, theaccountabilityteam.com. And really, again, it's take that first step. Just reach out to me, either DM on LinkedIn or via my website contact page. And I'm happy to talk to you just to better understand what your current reconciliation program looks like or doesn't look like, and we can discuss where to get started. Again, it might be the best place is just simply take, a course to just better understand what even is a good quality reconciliation, and then we can go from there.
Perfect. Thanks, Shana. And if anybody wants to reach out, we'll have a details there for you. So we'll have links to that. And also, if you want to, again, look into if quality is of importance and is a problem with your current offshoring team, if you're listening and you've got the offshore team, again, this can be an option to explore to help, again, standardize everything, make sure they're trained in the right way. So definitely keep that in mind. And again, we look forward to seeing everybody on the next episode of Business Beyond Borders. Thank you.
Thanks, Lawrence.
Thank you for tuning in to Business Beyond Borders. I'm Lawrence Whittam, and it's been a pleasure bringing you impactful insights tailored for the modern CPA firm. Remember, the world of accounting is vast and ever evolving, and we're here to navigate it together. For more resources and episodes, don't forget to subscribe and reach out to our experts. Until next time, keep pushing the boundaries of your business and explore the limitless possibilities beyond borders.